I need to open the meeting, right?
Yes.
All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the public, members of the staff and the planning board. This is the Town of Cohasset Planning Board meeting of May 26th, 2021. The meeting is beginning at 7 p.m. I'd like to get a roll call of the planning board members present.
Clark Brewer
Tom
here.
Callahan,
Tom Callahan here.
Clark Brewer,
Here.
Eric Potter,
Eric Potter here.
Amy Glassmeyer here. We have a quorum. So let me just give the public an understanding of what we're going to be doing tonight. The first order of business, we will be going into an executive session. I will read this. We're going, and that will, it is planned to go from 7 to as late as 7:45 p.m., after which we will come back to this Zoom meeting address. So please hang on to this if you wish to come. And then we will come back and we will reopen 2 public hearings about 2 properties on Windy Hill. So planning board members, please disconnect from this Zoom and go to the executive session Zoom. Lauren, is there anything you'd like to say?
You just need to do a roll call vote and read the exemption on the agenda to enter into executive session, and then you'll leave this Zoom and enter the other executive session.
I see. Okay, so all of this is being said. Thank you. So roll call vote for the entry into the executive session. I'm going to read the statement first and then I'll do the roll call. Enter into executive session under exception 6 to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property if the chair declares that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the governmental body. The planning board will discuss inclusionary zoning options with representatives of CHI Elm Street Realty LLC. So let me get a roll call vote of the planning board members present. Clark Brewer,
Clark Brewer here.
Tom Callahan,
I'm here. Am I voting to go into executive session? Is that what we just
that's what
we
we have
just
to
did the
do.
roll call? Okay, then the vote is aye, not here.
did you say Tom Callahan here?
Yeah, I'm here. We
Thank
did
you.
the roll call. We are voting
But
to
I
go
was
into
told to
executive.
do the roll call to go into the second meeting. So thank you. Eric Potter,
Eric Potter here.
Amy Glassmeyer here. So please.
I leave now and go to the executive.
That
Yes,
is
thank you.
Okay.
Thank you to the attendees who have been patiently waiting. The planning board has just concluded their executive session. Will be rejoining us in a moment. We'll be moving along with our agenda momentarily. Hello again, everyone. Hey, Paul.
Hey, Lauren. So what happened? I couldn't get into the executive session. That's a bit of a bummer.
I know, I'm sorry. We had to have 2 meeting links because it's like 2 different rooms. I tried to resend it to you, but I don't think I got it to you in time. I apologize.
All right.
Just waiting for our chair to rejoin us.
Was it weird seeing yourself on tape at the meeting the other night?
Yes.
You did a great job, though. So.
Thank you.
Hey, some reason I was changing a poopy diaper when Article 26 came up. Was that unanimously approved?
Yeah,
Well, congratulations.
I'm shocked.
I think
Anything could happen at a drive-in town meeting.
Yeah, I was debating with people online. I'm not a fan of it. For, everybody thinks that's the great way to go, but I think it stifles a lot of debate.
It does. It does.
We should not have let the church CPC thing sail through as a package, but it's really not conducive to getting up and starting a big debate on something. There was
all right,
one.
thank you very much. I'd like to begin the meeting again.
All right,
Do I need to do a roll call?
no,
I don't believe so. No, we're just back in open session, so you
Okay,
can
so
move
we're
along with the
now
agenda.
in, Open session. Thank you very much. And we will reopen 2 hearings. I'll read the description of the first, and then I'll read this after the discussion. I will read the description of the second, but we're going to handle them in sequence. So the 7:45 p.m. meeting, public hearing pursuant to 300-5.4 of the Cohasset zoning bylaw for an application for a large house plan review filed by Eames Capital Partners LLC. The subject property is 4 Windy Hill, lot 31. This was continued from May 12th, 2021. Where we left off last time was that we were going to treat each site separately, and we were going to deliberate on each site. But I first wish to ask the applicant if they have any comments they would like to make prior to the start of the discussion of the planning board. Mr. Richard, would you like to speak?
Sorry, having difficulty starting that up. We do not have any further information to submit at the time. I hope we've answered any questions that were lingering. I think that maybe Jeff Hassett may have something to say regarding. Are we speaking on lot 31? Sorry.
Yep.
We're doing one.
We are on lot 31, yes, sir.
Okay, so I don't think we have any new information. So I don't know what else to say.
Yeah. Sean, this is Jeff Assett here with Morse Engineering on behalf of the applicant. Just to reiterate and to add to some of the comments made at the last meeting, the zoning bylaws do regulate the size of the houses. These lots are in the Residence B zoning district, and the allowed building coverage is 20%. And I just wanted to point out that these lots fall well below that at 16% and 12%. And I noted at the last meeting, but they comply with the property line setbacks, the front, side, and rears. They comply with the height, and they also comply with the impervious coverage. So there was a comment at the last meeting that these houses look nice, but they'd be more appropriate if they were on larger lots. In my opinion, that goes right back to the lot coverage requirement, which is a % of the lot area. And if the houses do fall under that threshold. As far as massing, it's critical on any project. Not so much, in my opinion, the size of the house, because in this case, whether these houses end up being 4,000 square feet or 4,600 square feet, the finished product is going to look essentially the same. And what I mean by massing is, an example would be, if you look at a house that's under construction and is just framed, and maybe you're looking at the green plywood and the site's all dug up, they look out of place at that point. But then you have to add the architectural features to bring it into scale. You have the shingles, the appropriate windows, trim, dormers, porches, railings. Also add landscape walls, preserve natural areas where you can, and extensive landscaping. And this is the massing that brings it into scale. And I think this design does accomplish all of that. So I feel the applicant has put a nice project forward, and they've made numerous revisions throughout this long, large home review process. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Would any other members of the applicant team like to say or make comments? I don't see any comments from the,
So one last, could you promote Rich Henderson? I believe he's in the attendee section. Thank you.
all right, so I'd like to ask the planning board member. So at this point, our applicant has made some final comments. Some finer points were raised in terms of coverage, the size of the structure, the ways in which mass is managed in context. So planning board members, would we like to begin the discussion?
Yeah, I'll say something. You know what? I did go on site and walk around a little bit yesterday. And it's a great site. I also noted that it was heavily vegetated at one time, and in a way it's more sort of dramatic to think about adding houses without the vegetation. So, you know what, I guess what I believe is that the applicant has done a good job, in my estimation, at addressing the design challenges of the lot and of the sweeping landscape by orienting the long axis of the house along the slope as opposed to perpendicularly, by having porches, stone walls, and making design changes since we first looked at this that help the project look better. As far as I'm concerned, the only thing I think was an issue that we talked about last time was the light fixtures. While they're all good light fixtures, I think dark sky light fixtures would be an appropriate condition. for this particular project. And that's the only condition that I think that I can come up with that for this particular site.
All right, thank you very much. Paul Grady,
Nothing to add at this time.
thank you. Tom Callahan,
And Dad,
Eric Potter,
can I ask, are we going to hear from the citizenry? Because we did get something submitted today, a letter to us today. I assume we're going to hear from them because we didn't close the hearings, correct?
that's correct, that we will do that.
Okay.
So at this moment, Eric Potter hasn't spoken up, but he may, so I'm going to,
I'm sorry, guys. I had to step away from my desk.
oh, so would you like to make any commentary about the first property?
Yeah, so I went out to the site as well. And quite honestly, I think the two houses are better than one house there with regards to massing and scaling. And the applicant, surely could have put one mega mansion up there or one house that would have been larger in square footage and apply for a large home review. I think the two houses actually allow for more screening, more vegetation, less massing overall. I did walk both lots, and I was actually surprised to see that there was some distance between the other houses in Windy Hill. It really made me realize that it's important to get out to the site and take a look at things because it gives you a lot of perspective. I did take a ride down Windy Hill as well. Some of the houses there, they're all beautiful houses. It's a beautiful neighborhood. Some of the houses there are a little bit older, and it's my opinion that, in the next 10 to 15 years, as those houses turn over, they're probably going to be bought and additions will be made there as well. And while these houses may be a little bit bigger than the existing houses right now on the Windy Hill neighborhood road, down the line with the way things are going, I don't know that it'll necessarily be even the biggest houses on Windy Hill. In addition to that, when you take a right out of Jerusalem Road, in close proximity, there are houses that are bigger than the proposed houses, or at least equal to the size. There was a lot of, the lot had been cleared out already, so I don't know what the vegetation or natural habitat was there before, but the building envelope was staked out on both lots, and with the landscaping plans that are in place that have been submitted, as long as there's not, a lot more cutting or clearing of the natural vegetation that's left, or the trees that are left, specifically those that, border Jerusalem Road on the corner of both lots, I think there's going to be an adequate amount of privacy with the existing project as proposed. So it was good to see the lots. It was good to get perspective of it. And, it really put everything in perspective. I think at this time, as long as there's not a considerable amount of clearing or cutting of the natural vegetation and trees that are left, which I think are actually prohibited from being done by the Concom decision, I wouldn't have any objections really to either one of these projects.
So can I ask you, are you making keep the vegetation a condition? That's what
My
I hear you
inclination,
saying.
after walking the site and seeing and talking to the applicant, it didn't appear that there was even going to be much, if any, more cutting of natural vegetation in the trees that were there because of the Concom conditions that were set. So I'm open for discussion with the rest of the board. I would be just as comfortable with moving forward with on lot 31 with no conditions. If there were any conditions that I would be recommending, it would be to preserve any existing remaining vegetation and trees on the left corner of lot 31 towards Jerusalem Road. But I am also open just for approving without conditions. I think that there's going to be a significant amount of, new vegetation that's planted there, new trees that are planted, that's really going to, over time, give a lot of screening and privacy. So I'm open for discussion with the board on what direction to go in with regards to that, but I wouldn't put any more regulations or conditions in place that would prohibit the applicant from building what they want. Just making sure that, there is some existing native plantings there that would be nice to keep along Jerusalem Road, but it doesn't even seem like in the plans that they intend to really cut those down.
And like you said, they're under the jurisdiction of Concom anyway, so
That's right.
Concom's gonna want them to leave as much as Concom is gonna, whatever was a part of their decision.
That's right.
So,
Well, before we make a determination like that, we actually have to know that that is in fact true.
Well, we do, because the Concom decision's already come out.
What do we have a document in our hands which shows what's going to happen on the north edge of that property? And if you're saying that nothing is going to be cut, do we have a document from Concom that says that?
Yeah, it's part of the stormwater permit.
But when we were, okay, it's all right. That's very helpful. Tom Callahan?
You already asked me. I don't have anything to add at this time.
I don't think Colery has said anything.
Well, just one second, guys. Lauren, I'm going to leave and join from my laptop, if you can let me back in.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Paul Colery?
I have nothing to add, Madam Chair.
Okay, so I'd like to ask Mr. Tiraki about the comment that Mr. Hassett made about essentially leaving some of the allowable developable land on the table so that the coverage is less than it could be. As a designer, if you had 4 percentage points more land that you could have incorporated in the design, could you have made the design more lower in essentially setting and more extensive in form?
In this case, I don't think so, because as we've already talked about before, the board was concerned about some of the setbacks since we only had left about a foot of breathing room. And then we had rotated the house as a major design gesture, rotated it diagonally towards the intersection of the road. So had we pushed the footprint further, I think it would have forced us to change that strategy, and it would have been a more rectangular or orthogonal layout that's probably mostly parallel to Windy Hill Road. And we basically started from what the best layout is on the site, and we ended up at 16%. We were not in a race to maximize the coverage. It ended up being what it ended up, and we think it's a natural part of the design process.
So you're saying that even if you had more space that you could have utilized, it was a design decision not to utilize it. But is it possible to design something where you use the maximum space, but you alter the profile of a structure?
I think in theory, yes, but every lot is different. This particular lot being a corner lot, it all started from that rotational gesture towards the intersection of the road. And that really determined the rest of the wings of this mass. So, but in certain other lots, maybe that are more linear, you could see a house sprawling a little more linearly and maybe not as vertically. So you can certainly see that. So I think it's not just a matter of the lot coverage percentage, but it's also a matter of lot shape and probably topography as well.
So then when it's introduced as part of the discussion, sometimes it's not relevant, is what you're saying, because there are certain constraints on a site. So even if you had a larger volume that you could fill, you can't fill it for a reason of the way the structure would sit or the way that it would ultimately bump up against margins.
Right, and we could have certainly, we could have increased the footprint. We could have added yet another wing coming off somewhere. We just didn't see the need based on the ideal floor plan layout. And that ended up being 16% on this particular lot.
But it's possible to have a design that would in fact be more extensive, but lower in scale.
I think in theory it is. In theory it is, and it may require a different strategy of how the massing is located on the site. Like I said, maybe more linear, or maybe some other strategy with more of like a courtyard type setup, which may be applicable for other lots. But for this particular lot, we felt that this was a better way to go.
All right, thank you. All right, so what we have here are,
Otter's got his hand raised.
oh, sorry. Say that
Not to,
again.
not to get, belabor things at all, but I think it's important to note where how that property is high up on a hill, and the only real abutter that's going to be impacted by this is the one directly behind lot 31, and they haven't objected at all. There's no one else whose view that I could see is going to be impacted by this. It seems to me that, where the properties are going to go, where the new buildings and the houses are going to go, it's not going to impede anyone's existing views because of where it stands on the hill like that on the corner.
So I'm not raising the issue of view. I'm raising the issue of mass. And we know from the discussions that have come forth from the public that the concern is that the mass of the structure is outsized from the neighborhood. And so I'm asking whether or not there are design solutions where you can have the same volume of footage, but that you can have a different physical layout to allow the structure to appear to be less imposing.
The only thing I would say to that is that's why I took a ride through Windy Hill, because while they're all beautifully maintained homes and it's a beautiful neighborhood, in my opinion, probably half of that neighborhood is going to wind up turning over in the next 10 to 15 years. And people are going to be doing additions and renovations there. So while this may be right now may not be fit in exactly with the existing neighborhood, I think we also have to be forward thinking and understand that, in 10 years from now, this 4,400, 4,500 square foot house is really not going to be much bigger than any of the houses that are going to be at Windy Hill at that time. It's better than one single house that's going to be, 5,500, 6,000 square feet without all that vegetation and plantings that they're going to put in and privacy screening. I would think that's, which the applicant could have come forward with. And I think that would have been much more out of place and out of scale in that neighborhood, in that area, than the two relative, slightly smaller proposed buildings that they're going to put there, houses are going to put there.
So I guess my point is too pedestrian, but what I'm trying to say is that design can can come up with many solutions. And when it comes to mass is a trade-off against extensiveness. And so you can design a structure that has a larger footprint, but a lower mass relative to somebody looking at the structure. And if you look at the newest types of architecture in Massachusetts, you are seeing people build houses which have a lower profile, but a more linear and more extensive footprint. And why are they doing that? Because demographics are changing. And
I don't disagree with that, but the only thing I would point out is that if there was less mass, a lower level, or they spread it out over more square footage of the lots, that would, I think, get in the way of all the plantings they're going to put there and actually necessitate less privacy screening and less new plantings, because there'd have to be larger houses taking up more square footage of the lot. So I'd almost rather a more condensed house, because I don't see how the massing after the plantings is really going to impact the abutters, as opposed to, and allow them to put the vegetation and plantings in there, as opposed to having, less height in a longer house. I just think that that allows for all this plannings and future privacy screening that when these trees take hold and actually grow.
Thank you. Let me ask Mr. Grady.
Is it possible for us to hear from the letter Tom said was put in there? It might help with opinions and.
Yeah, I was going to turn now. If no other comments are made by the planning board members, Lauren, can you enable the public to speak?
Yes, I will. I see there's a Thomas Carroll with his hand raised right now, so I'm going to promote him first. If there are any other members of the public who wish to address the board, I would request that you put your name and address into the Q&A section. You can indicate either a comment or a written comment, or that you just like to address the board, and we'll take you in the order received. Thank you. And with that, Thomas Carroll is here. He could just unmute himself. And for any members of the public who address the board, if you could just state your name and address for the record before you begin your comments.
Thank you, Lauren. My name is Thomas Carroll. I'm at 1 Windy Hill Road, directly across the street from the properties in question. With all due respect to Mr. Potter's comments, his comments regarding future development on Windy Hill are purely speculative. I'd also like to address Mr. Brewer's comments about dark sky lighting. I think that's only nibbling at the edges of the key issue. And I think that Chair Glassmeyer has hit on the key issue, which is we really need houses of a lower profile. They're too vertical, buildings are too vertical, and they're too large for the neighborhood, the 70-year-old neighborhood. I'd like to read a letter that I sent to the planning board today, if I may, which addresses our key concerns of several abutters and other residents of Cohasset. At its May 12, 2021 large home review meeting concerning the reference lots on Windy Hill Road, the planning board invited members of the public to suggest conditions for potential approval of Eames Capital Partners LLC's development plans for these properties. This letter, signed by abutters and other concerned citizens of Cohasset, proposes 4 conditions that we believe to be reasonable, achievable, and fully within the spirit and intent of the large home review rules and regulations. We wish to emphasize that we recognize the applicant's right to develop these properties, provided that their plans conform to Cohasset zoning, environmental, and other relevant regulations. Our fundamental position is that the proposed developments should be consistent with a neighborhood community that has existed on Windy Hill and surrounding areas for over 70 years. Our recommendations focus on 2 key issues: the scale and especially verticality of the proposed buildings, which we believe are inconsistent with the neighborhood, and second, protection of remaining vegetation and other physical features of these properties, which have already been severely degraded by the applicant and its predecessor as owner of these lots. Following from these objectives, our recommendations are as follows: no further removal of trees and bushes growing outside of the proposed building footprints. 2, although we prefer that no ledge be disturbed, the reality is that these properties cannot be developed without some ledge removal. Therefore, limit ledge removal to the footprint of the structures. 3, limit the height of the buildings to 2 stories above grade. These are, particularly the building on lot 31 is a 3-story building. It's not a 2-story building with an attic. We believe that Eames agreed to do this for 14 Windy Hill Road, the structure that they've already built in the neighborhood. We believe that the size of the building should be limited to 4,000 square feet to be consistent with the neighborhood, including RGFA and unfinished spaces, which have the potential to be finished. We believe that these proposed conditions are fully consistent with the objectives of the large home review rules and regulations, which charge the planning board to, among other goals, consider the scale of buildings, the Proposed construction will be reviewed in relation to the scale of other structures in its vicinity, not speculating how large they might be in the future, through appropriate massing, screening, lighting, building and siding materials and other architectural techniques, and landscape. Planning board will look at changes to wetlands, floodplains, hilltops, grade changes, vegetation, and soil removal, exposed ledge and landscaping. We recognize, we the abutters and other concerned citizens recognize the planning board faces a difficult challenge on these properties. Our hope is that the board will balance the rights of the applicant with those of the residents of the Windy Hill neighborhood and other concerned citizens of Cohasset. That's our comment. We believe that the buildings are too large and too vertical for the neighborhood, and we respectfully request that these concerns be considered. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Carroll. Lauren, will you enable the next member of the public?
There have been no comments entered into the question and answer function at this time.
All right. So, with no further comments, I will make one additional comment related to the vegetation, which is, I think it's important for us on the planning board to recognize when we talk about vegetation, the question is, who is the vegetation screening for? Is the vegetation screening for the residents across the street or in the neighborhood? Or is the screening for the residents that which will be above the first residence along Windy Hill? And I think, Eric, what you're talking about is the vegetation that's going to screen the two properties, one from another. Is that correct?
About the vegetation, so I'm talking about three things actually. If you look at the proposed landscape plan, there's a significant amount of vegetation that's going to, and trees that are going to be planted on the Windy Hill side of the road of lot 31. There's also a significant amount of plantings and vegetation that's going to be planted in between lot 31 and lot 32. That's all going to be new plantings and new trees. And then there's the existing native trees and vegetation that exists on Jerusalem Road. So I would say that the plantings on Windy Hill, I think will do a good job of creating privacy and screening and minimizing the massing of the lot 31 house. The lot 32 house is set further back. And I don't think it, even though I don't really think it's going to be an issue at all, but that's going to be screened by the plantings on Jerusalem Road, by the house on lot 31, and by all the new trees that are going to be planted there. The only house, again, that I saw that is close to lot 31, lot 32, is the house immediately behind lot 31. And again, no one has spoken up about from that house to oppose what's planned to be built there. So I think the combination of the new plantings and existing trees on Jerusalem Road will provide a nice level of screening and privacy when all is said and done. Now, of course, I'm looking at this from the perspective of the lot's been, I don't know what the lot looked like before. So I can certainly understand how people in the Windy Hill neighborhood, people in town, the butters may not be happy with the fact that, a lot of the existing native trees and habitat were cut down prior to the large home review. But with the landscaping plan that I see, I think they've done a good job of being willing to plant a significant amount of new trees and new plantings there.
All right, thank you. Mr. Hassett, could you put up the vegetation plan? I want to make sure I understand the extent of what Eric's saying. All right, so Eric, what I see on lot 31 are two round discs, which I presume are a dimensional reference for two trees. And then I see some vegetation that is going to be screening along Jerusalem Road. But what I don't see is a very sophisticated landscape plan head on to the house, looking from Windy Hill or opposite at one Windy Hill, looking at that structure itself. So am I missing something?
I think you're missing something, but I would say this, if you take a ride down Windy Hill, with all due respect to the Windy Hill abutters and people that live in that neighborhood, the next house that is right behind lot 31. And then there's not a house that they're on the corner. So it's not as if they're in the middle of the neighborhood here. And there's houses on the right, left, immediately behind both of them. There's a fair amount of, I think, space between these two lots and, the rest of Windy Hill, rest of the Windy Hill neighborhood. Overall, I do think that's the case. And if you look at this landscape, there's a significant amount of new trees going up, especially in between lot 31 and lot 32.
That's absolutely true. And my point is, you're screening for lot 32. Lot 31 is not very well screened at the front edge along Windy Hill. And there could be something interesting done there to make it look more than two, medium-sized trees standing alone.
There is a legal view easement there. So we can't impede on that.
If I could add to that too, there's also a 3-foot tall stone wall that will add some character to the front there. And the two trees that you're describing, they're relatively large at time of planting. They're 3.5-inch caliber, and they're red maples. So they are trees that are intended to grow very large.
And will there be grass at the front of the residence where the chambers are? There'll be, I can see the chambers drawn there, but will there be grass in front of the chamber?
Yes, there will be.
All right. Did you perform any perk tests on that particular part of the property to determine whether or not the water actually will percolate?
Yes. Yes.
You drilled. Can you tell me what kind of test you did?
Yeah, the test pits were excavated with an excavator, and there were 4 or so in that area.
But did you perform a perk test?
No, perk tests are for septic systems.
Perk tests can also be used in a case like this particular situation, in light of the fact that the soil maps that you're using are at a scale that are referenced in their use not to be used at this scale because they don't apply. So I'm asking, did you do any sort of perk test to know that the water would perk? The reason I'm asking you is this particular corner of Windy Hill is subject to serious flooding during rain. And it can block all the way across Jerusalem Road, but it certainly can block right around the corner there. So I'm wondering whether or not the water is going to be able to percolate sufficiently on the ledge that it sits on so that we don't end up having more flooding.
And the answer is yes. Test pits were performed. They are these symbols. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 of them in the vicinity of the leaching system. And the system is elevated to be above, provide the minimum of 2 feet of groundwater separation. So yeah, that has been done and
But you did not
considered.
perform a perk test.
Test pits were excavated and the type of soil was logged, and stormwater is designed based on the infiltration rate is designed based on the type of soil, in this case, sandy loam.
All right.
That's how the DEP stormwater handbook and your local stormwater bylaws, that's the method recommended.
All right, thank you. All right, any other comments from planning board members? So what I heard we spoke of as conditions are 2. One is the request that the applicant use dark sky lighting fixtures. I presume that means all the way around the structure?
Excuse me, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Just for clarification of the record right now, are you moving to, you need to close the public hearing before deliberation. So I just want to confirm where the planning board is at in this process.
I'm just trying to get an accounting for where we are. And
She's restless. I think she might have another poop.
could you say that again? I couldn't understand that.
I think that was someone who is supposed to be on mute.
Okay. Okay, so I'm just letting people know what we have here as comments that were connected to the word condition. As Lauren said, we need to close the hearing and begin the deliberation process. Is there a formal mechanism, Lauren, we need to enact?
If the planning board is ready, a member would have to move to close the public hearing.
Motion to close the public hearing for lot 31, Windy Hill, 4 Windy Hill.
Can I get a second?
I'll second it.
Paul Grady, thank you. We'll do a roll call vote. Clark Brewer,
Clark Brewer, aye.
Tom Callahan, and you're muted.
Aye.
Paul Grady,
I'm abstaining.
Paul Caleri,
Paul Caleri, aye.
Amy Glassmeyer, aye. Am I missing anybody? Eric Potter.
Potter, aye.
All right. So we will now enter the deliberation process.
We're going to deliberate now.
Yes, we are.
Okay, well, I honestly, I think that the applicant on this particular example has made a number of trade-offs, concessions, thought more deeply about the design and the design issues and substantially in conformance with our requirements for large home review. And I would make a condition of dark sky light fixtures for all the outdoor light fixtures. And that's it. Does anyone have an objection about requiring dark sky light fixtures? I see Tom nodding his head.
Nope, I do not object.
No objection.
Okay, let me just make sure I get Paul Grady.
No, I have no objection to that.
All right, Clark, Paul, Eric.
No objection.
All right, no objection. Planning board, Clark Brewer,
I'll make a motion to approve with the condition of dark sky light fixtures.
so are we doing each
Well-
condition at a time?
I only have one.
No, I know, but.
All right, well, does anybody want to consider Mr. Carroll's conditions?
Well, I think it would require a complete redesign of the project. And as a number of design aspects have been changed, I'm not in favor of a condition that would require a complete redesign of the project.
All right, what about removing vegetation? That wouldn't require a redesign.
Well, see what some of the other members think.
I don't think it would.
Which was a condition we had in our February decision, by the way.
I don't think it would. I saw Sean Richard showed me on both lots, where the Concom regulations stood with regards to removing what's remaining there as vegetation, the trees. I feel comfortable, that there's not going to be any more, removal or cutting down of the existing vegetation due to the Concom decision in orders that are in place there. So, I myself feel comfortable with them moving forward with the motion to approve with Clark's condition being the only condition. on lot 31.
All right, but I think it's important for you to make it clear, and everybody is clear that Concom is still in negotiation with the applicants for the upper lot. So when we talk about vegetation being removed, we're very clear that this is for lot 31. And we're talking about the edge, which is close to Jerusalem Road. And the reason I'm making that distinction is because the rest of the vegetation has already been removed. So by and large, there's very little vegetation that could be removed on the first lot closest edge to Jerusalem Road. But is that what you're talking about, Eric? You're not talking about the whole lot.
On lot 31, the only spot that I would be concerned about removal of any further vegetation or trees would be the left corner of lot 31. But, you know, having walked the property and listening to Sean, it doesn't appear that any further vegetation is going to be cut down on that left corner. So, I mean, if that's a condition that makes everybody happy, you know, I'm okay with something like that because I don't think it's going to change anything for the applicant.
So Eric, when you say left corner, are you facing the project and Jerusalem is on your right?
I'm facing, so when I say left corner, I mean standing on the lot, looking at Jerusalem Road.
Okay.
You know, the right would be the open area of where Windy Hill connects to Jerusalem Road, and the left is, you know, the left corner.
Okay, so then you are talking about the remainder of the vegetation that actually is alongside of Jerusalem Road on the side closest to Straits Pond.
On the border of lot 31 and lot 32.
Right,
And-
okay.
And I would go so far as to say, I don't need it to be, I wouldn't want it to be a condition that prohibits them from removing any vegetation. I would just say that it would be, if it makes the board, makes the board happy, any vegetation or trees, you know, that exceed, you know, 6 feet in height or something like that. If they have to go and, you know, remove some brush, I'm fine with that as well. I think there was just some nice trees that provide screening there. Again, the applicant has told me that those aren't going to be removed, but if that makes everybody feel more comfortable, then I'm on board with that.
Right. I mean, if we touched anything on that, in that area between Jerusalem Road and Windy Hill Lot 31, we would be in violation of Concom's permit. So there are some like shrubs or vegetation on the lot outside of that area where the house is going. There's some low-lying brush. I don't even know what the name of the stuff is, but that stuff I wouldn't want to be prohibited from moving a shrub that's in the
Right.
in the place of the driveway. But
Right.
all of that stuff that I think everyone's referring to is protected by conservation. So, you know, we can't touch it regardless. So if the condition was there, the condition would be the same thing as Concom's report.
Right. All right, thank you. Karis North?
Yeah, Madam Chair, my suggestion would be that any additional removal of vegetation would have to be consistent with the order from the Conservation Commission and reference that particular order in the approval. And that way it's crystal clear, and then the board gets hopefully some satisfaction with regard to vegetation.
You want me to amend my motion?
Well, I want to first give Tom and then Paul a chance to speak. Tom, Paul. Tom, do you have comments?
No, I do not.
All right. Paul Caleri?
No additional comments. I think that Karis North's suggestion, just referring back to the Concom's decision and that order number, would cover and protect everyone and make everyone feel comfortable.
All right, thank you. Paul Grady?
I was going to suggest the Concom amendment as well. And I have a question for Mr. Richard. This is not an easy one. So did you guys have any discussions at all with the abutters? This is one of the larger ones I've heard about people coming back against a project. Did you work with the abutters at all?
You're muted, sir.
Sorry. We did talk to abutters during the construction of our last project. It felt to me that we did have the support. You know, I wasn't aware of the overall concern going into this. But yeah, I mean, we were in that neighborhood for 10 months, and we got to know people. I knew some of the people already. You know, we live in town as well, so we were talking with people. We didn't really get any negative response going into this, so we were a little bit surprised.
Bear with me. That was on your first project. I remember that one because we
Right, but we were, you know, preparing to purchase these other lots, you know, during the construction of the last project. So we did start to communicate about them and our plans and what we were going to do. Not specifically, but you know, it didn't seem like we were being met with much resistance during our conversations with people. So
that really didn't happen. I'm not saying that to pick on you, just that I've just not been on a case like this that's we're on a hearing like this that's had so much
well,
pushback.
we had some pushback on the last one. We were able to meet concerns. I don't know, again, I don't know, you know, people's true feelings on the projects, but when I do discuss this with people ahead of time, you know, we try to work with it. We try to figure it out. We try to address the concerns as best we can. You know, we just can't go all the way all the time and address concerns 100%. We're not disregarding people's concerns. We're not, you know, sweeping them under the rug. We're really trying to address what their concerns are as best that we can. You know, I just feel like there was a lot of misunderstanding of the scope of work as far as, you know, ledge removal and the cliff on Jerusalem, you know, where we never had intentions of touching that. But, you know, I felt like there was a lot of communication around that outside of our scope of work that just wasn't, and you know, how do I clarify that? You know, I just couldn't figure out a way to clarify it to them. I mean, the impact is minimal as we can get it without putting up, you know, a single story ranch, which, you know, if that was the plan, that would have been fine, but we would have grossly overpaid for the lots when we figured out the value of them to begin with. But we always we try our best to work with the surrounding people. This has been difficult for us because we don't have direct communication lines with some of these people that are showing concerns. Where I think the last project we did have, you know, direct communication with a lot of these people. You know, we had our kids are in the same class. And we just know them, so we were able to meet at someone's house and kind of take in the concerns. And you know, this one was just a little bit different. So we're doing our best with this format, and you know, I don't know, it's been difficult for us as well.
There is one comment in the chat. Lauren, do you want to read it? I'll read it, and I can't take any more comments from the public. Can I, Lauren?
Yeah, we've closed the public hearing. The public comment can't be taken on this application anymore.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. For those in the audience, what happens once we close a hearing and we go into deliberation, we can receive no new information in any direction. It is simply a process of deliberation coming up to a final conclusion. But thank you. All right, so it seems to me that there's a sentiment to reinforce the condition that was set by the Concom with regard to vegetation on the northeast corner of the intersection. Actually, it's the northwest corner of the intersection of Wendy Hill and Jerusalem Road. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
It's not a question, it's a statement. I'm just trying to get a confirmation that there was a sentiment on the board to verify or accept the requirements set forth by the Concom that no further vegetation would be removed from the site at the northwest corner of Windy Hill and Jerusalem Road as you're facing Straits Pond.
Yeah, I mean, that would be equivalent to Concom's orders, yes.
All right. So planning board members, is that clear for everybody?
Yeah.
Okay, Tom Callahan, looks like you want to say something?
So I made a motion. Do you want me to amend my motion? Or does someone else want to make one?
Let's make a motion here. Come on.
I just want to make sure everybody's got everything they wanted to say said. So with no further comment, would you like to amend your motion? Mr. Brewer?
Yeah. I'll make a motion to approve of the large home review, subject to two requirements, one being that the light fixtures are dark sky technology compliant and that the vegetation be in conformance with the Conservation Commission's order of conditions.
All right, can I get a second?
Second.
Eric, did you second it?
Yes, Eric Potter,
Thank
second.
you. Okay, roll call vote, Clark Brewer,
Clark Brewer, aye.
Tom Callahan,
Aye.
Paul Caleri,
Cleary doesn't vote.
Paul Grady. Oops,
Sorry, Paul.
broke. the
Maybe you
pattern.
can vote, Paul, because Grady left.
Paul
I mean,
Grady,
Cleary.
Brewer, I'm right here. So
say that
Paul
again?
Paul Grady, aye. I was on mute.
Okay, thank you. Eric Potter,
Eric Potter, aye.
Amy Glassmeyer, aye. Thank
Sorry,
you.
Mr. Cleary, you almost had a 2-second window to vote.
All right. So let's take a little bit of a break. It's kind of hot. And maybe we just need to stretch a little bit. It took about, not quite an hour for that. Yep, we took an hour. And so let's just, everybody get up, take a break, 2 minutes. We'll be back in 2 minutes. Because so 8:43.
Hey, Tom,
Yeah,
when does that bylaw kick in? Does the Attorney General has to,
yeah, it'll probably won't be till fall.
so everybody's it'll be like a moratorium, a new requirement for new construction. So everybody's gonna get their building permit applied for prior to that being effective?
Actually,
No,
I actually talked to,
Jen?
Let's not encourage them.
Jen,
for
is
it.
that you?
hi. So we talked to Carol and zoning bylaw changes. It is general bylaw changes that go back. Lauren I know that zoning bylaw changes go back to the date they're approved. Is that the case with general, Karis?
Yeah, they go back to the date they were approved by town meeting. But then there's a for the effective date. So they work backwards, but you can't actually implement them until town meeting,
The Attorney
Eight.
General.
until the Attorney
AG.
General approves them, sorry, right.
Yep.
And then there's you're not you are grandfathered, you're subject to the new bylaw if there's an application pending for approval that you have to have something filed before the notice of the first hearing of the bylaw change. So after that, you're subject to the new bylaw.
So
So
if somebody filed tomorrow, they are subject to the new bylaw.
Correct.
So there we go. It's like $1 million in this.
So if you're not granted a permit, if you haven't been granted a building permit yet,
Correct.
then you have to use this bylaw and comply with it. even though the Attorney General, I thought it was like 90 days that the Attorney General does a review and says it's good.
That's right. Town clerk has 30 days to file the package with the AG, and the AG has 90 days to review it, which can be extended by a second 90 days, but the effective date, and then there has to be notice, publication of notice, but the effective date goes back to the date of the town meeting approval.
But if I applied for a building permit tomorrow,
You're under the new bylaw.
I'm under the new bylaw, but it's not, it hasn't been approved by the Attorney General yet.
That's correct.
Because I thought in the past, I thought that the effective date was at the time that the Attorney General, you couldn't enforce it. The time that the Attorney General did their review and approved it.
Nope.
I'd like to continue this discussion about the.
Oh, everyone's back?
New, but yeah, everybody's back. Well, I want to.
Well, we want to wrap up lot 32.
Correct. So I'm going to reopen the public hearing and read the statement. I'm going to ask the applicant if there's any new information. I would like the applicant to tell us where they stand with the rest of the boards and what's still outstanding for them on this project. So here's the public hearing pursuant to 300-5.4 of the Cohasset zoning bylaw for an application for a large house plan review filed by Eames Capital Partners LLC. The subject property is Windy Hill Road, lot 32, house number pending, continued from May 12th. So if we can begin with the applicant, and please update us as to where you've been and what's still outstanding.
Okay, so lot 32, we've been to large home review. And we've been on the agenda for the stormwater permit for quite some time now, but we didn't feel it was appropriate to have that done without knowing the outcome of the large home review. So we wanted to get this kind of solidified before we presented it to stormwater conservation. Jeff Hassett can probably speak more on that, but we have no further information to present on the upper lot. You know, it's a much bigger lot. The house is smaller in square footage. It's also smaller in height. The vegetation to be removed is what Jeff Hassett can speak on that. We've added screening to cover the neighbors' concerns of screenage through the property up on the cliff coming down. We've reduced the square footage of the house. We removed a third car garage bay with the space above it to protect or to salvage a large outcropping of ledge. Yeah, I think that's it. So I'll kick this over to Jeff Hassett. Thank you.
Thanks, Sean. To elaborate on the conservation stormwater permit, we did file with conservation. We opened the hearing and had one public hearing. We also had a site visit with the members of the commission. And then we have been continuing that project, waiting for this process, a large home review, to have some resolution on it. The next conservation meeting is next Thursday for that. As far as vegetation, there are only 2 small areas where further trees need to be removed. And if you refer to the landscaping plan, those areas are hatched in red. So beyond those points, there will be no further vegetation removal. There is quite elaborate screening proposed. There are 39 trees and 29 bushes. And yeah, I think that's the extent of it. Thank you.
I would like to ask the planning board members in order for comments. Clark Brewer.
Yeah. No, I guess I would say the same issue of that the applicant has made an effort through significant new plantings and scaling back of the project to mitigate the impact of the large house on the area around it. And I would, as a condition of approval, suggest that the light fixtures be dark sky compliant. You know, obviously we could have the same motion that we had the last time, but I think that the main issue might be the extent of vegetation removal, and probably the conservation compliance would be a major kind of benchmark for that discussion. So what does anyone else think?
Paul Grady?
I'd be frankly more comfortable hearing what Concom had to say after their hearing goes through. In all honesty, that's what I'd be comfortable with.
Thank you very much. Tom Callahan?
How about we impose conditions and let Concom bend to ours instead of the other way around? Just a thought.
Right. Yeah, you could do that. I mean, we could do that.
This stuff about which board goes first gets very frustrating. It's disappointing the other hearings were postponed.
So what conditions would you offer, Tom?
I closed down the conditions I wrote in February, so you know, a condition that leaves existing vegetation as is, as has been suggested by the abutters and as was part of our conditions in February.
Other comments?
I mean, is there a concern with the amount of removal that we're intending? And we did have the Conservation Commission out there to look at what we were intending to remove, where he did note that most of the product to be removed was an invasive species, and that we weren't really removing anything other than the few cedars that would potentially die, given the you know, if we did leave them and had to bring that, we do have to bring the grade up there, so the trees would eventually die on their own if we didn't take them out. You know, everything that he did look at, you know, it didn't seem to be a major issue. So I guess what I'm asking is there a concern with the amount of removal that we're proposing to you with our landscaping plan that we're taking out?
Can I see the plan on the screen again?
Yeah, I'll bring it up.
The only issue would be around the pool, right? We're talking about the area around the pool where the trees have been removed.
Yeah, Mother Nature is giving in to the need for a swimming pool. That's what troubles me. But
Well, it's not just the swimming pool. I mean, we do have to bring that grade up there regardless.
So we did reduce the amount of clearing following the conservation hearing. We pulled in the limit of work as tight as possible, and then we staked that out in the field as well for the commission. And what we found is there aren't any trees in that area that are bigger than 12-inch diameter. There's I think there are 2 cedar trees that are about 10 inches or so, and the other trees are all significantly smaller than that.
I'll defer to people who went out to the site. I couldn't make it out there yesterday, so I don't know if anybody who saw what's been marked for removal has any thoughts on it.
Well, one question I would have is, can those existing mature cedar trees, can they be relocated? Can you make a root ball and pull them up instead of burying them under more soil?
No, they're definitely too big to move.
How big are they in terms of diameter? So
10 inch.
You're just talking about 2 or 3 that are in the red zone, right?
Yeah, they're right here.
Okay.
So they're too close to the house. They're in the area of the grading.
And what kind of diameter are they at, like 4 feet above grade?
They're about 10-inch diameter.
Okay.
But they are proposing a number of new cedar trees throughout the property.
Mhm.
So, I mean, you can't buy a 10-inch tree, obviously, but they're pretty significant in caliper. Actually, we don't specify by caliper. They're 5 to 6 feet in height.
Got it.
So those could, I don't know why you would say, Jeff, those couldn't be moved. I implanted trees that were 30 feet tall. People do that all the time if they have the money.
With all due respect to everybody, if you went and looked at the, when you walk the site and see where the pool is going to be, and then in this red area right here on the plan, there's lower brush there. And then it drops off considerably. The ledge drops off or the grade drops off. And that's the green part is where the larger trees and native trees exist that you wouldn't want to be cut down, which seemingly are the ones that are going to be regulated by Concom. So, I don't think it's necessary to have a condition restricting any removal of vegetation that would prohibit them from putting the pool in, so long as perhaps there was the condition put in place that required any vegetation removed to install and construct the pool, be limited just for that purpose. And perhaps you'd limit the hardscaping behind the left corner of the pool to just be for the installation of the pool itself and nothing more, like patios and pavers and that sort of thing. And then, that and make sure that there's not going to be, there's going to be proper irrigation so that the native species and trees that are in that green area, don't get killed or die off because, there's too much water runoff or not enough water runoff. I don't think that we need to have the applicant's plans to put a pool in be altered or moved at all. I think it's just simply, you would limit the cutting down any more existing vegetation to only what's absolutely necessary to install the pool and make sure that it's properly constructed to allow for the existing trees behind that to survive. I mean, the grade drops off considerably. So, I don't think that they could even, they wouldn't be constructing anything too much further beyond where that pool is going to end. That's all I got.
Not in,
Tom Callahan?
no, we have a bunch of abutter comments I want to hear.
We have 5 comments.
Madam Chair, if I may.
You may.
Let's see, just lower my virtual hand here. Okay, so this question is for Jeff. Jeff, could you reiterate? I think what you said was you're going to be planting 39 trees and 26 bushes. Was that number correct?
Yeah, that's correct on lot 32 alone.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're talking about taking down, I understand that there may have been a little bit of clearing done previously to get in there and look at some of the materials for the soil and the rest of it, but they're proposing to put back 39 trees and 26 bushes. It sounds like a lot when we're talking about taking down a couple of cedars, and I think of those proposed 39 cedars, Jeff has told us that some of them are also going to be cedars that will grow and mature in the future and provide some privacy for everybody. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody heard that comment.
Thank you for that. Paul Grady, do you have a comment?
Not yet, no.
All right, then I'm going to move to the public.
Butters,
Go ahead.
I'd
Yeah,
like-
I'm going to go to the abutters now. Lauren, would you like to promote the abutters?
Yes, I promoted Amy Berniker. She indicated she'd like to address the board. I'll also note for the record that any written comments are included in the record. I'm not going to read every written comment out loud. If someone would like to address the board, they may do so, or they may read their comments out loud for the record.
Hello, am I supposed to speak now?
Yes. Could you state your name and address for the record, please?
I am Amy Berniker, 662 Jerusalem Road. And I will do this without being on camera. So I did want to talk about those cedars from the other point of view from the road. So I live around this gigantic hill that contains lot 31 and 32. But as you walk around the hill on Jerusalem Road, there's a small path to the edge of Straits Pond where there's now a little bench that a Eagle Scout built there. And I often do take a walk to that little path and to that bench. And when you turn back around to come to Jerusalem Road, straight ahead is the cliff of the cliff. And at the very top of that cliff are those cedar trees. And I believe those are the cedar trees on lot 32. And I feel that that view with those particular cedar trees is very much a part of what makes Jerusalem Road a designated scenic road from the state of Massachusetts. And I just feel that if those are cut down, it will destroy the scenic quality of this spot. So I do ask that a condition be put on to preserve those cedar trees. They're very important. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, Lauren.
Madam Chair, the rest are written comments. There's been no one else that would like to address the board directly.
All right, then I'll read them. So there are a series of additional comments in the chat, and I'll read them from the start to finish. So this is Kathy Berrigan, 646 Jerusalem Road. I want to point out that the trees and the vegetation that is planned to be removed as shown in red will be all the trees to the top of the cliff, and I believe some over the cliff. The cliff on the property will not have trees along it and Jerusalem Road. This seems contrary to what the developer was speaking about regarding lot 31 and not removing any more vegetation along the cliff on Jerusalem Road. Thank you. This is from Virginia. Unfortunately, I think the individual is referring to cedars. They take 50 years to grow. There should be a design workaround or they should be moved. Virginia Jensen, 542 Jerusalem Road. Kathy Berrigan again, 646 Jerusalem Road. There are three large cedar trees that line the ledge, grace it, and give it habitat for animals. The trees are part of the sweeping vegetation and tree line that line the ledge. We don't want the trees removed. We want them to remain. They are beautiful. They lend themselves to the ambiance of the entire cliff along Jerusalem Road and across from Straits Pond. From Virginia, perhaps you eliminate the pool so that the wildlife on the pond can survive. Their nests are in the trees, etc. Virginia Jensen, 542 Jerusalem Road. Kathy Berrigan, 646 Jerusalem Road. I believe the intent is to clear cut all those trees in front of the pool, including the trees at the bottom of the cliff. Kathy Berrigan, 646 Jerusalem Road. Virginia Jensen, 542 Jerusalem Road. I would like to speak. Can you please promote Ms. Jensen?
Yes.
I did ask to speak prior to you reading them, so I'm probably repeating some things, but the trees do take 50 years to grow. There should be a design workaround, or they should be replanted. There's options here. The trees are part of the environment of Straits Pond. It's where the wildlife live. Their nests are there. There are eagles on Straits Pond. There are all kinds of birds on Straits Pond that are integral to the environment. It's a bird migration place. And eliminating those very large trees completely just really does not respect the scenic road nor the Straits Pond environment. And frankly, from my point of view, I think the house could very well be constructed and be a very nice house without the pool. Thank you very much.
All right, that's the end of the public comments. Kathy Berrigan just requested speaking. Would you please promote her, Lauren?
Hello?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Yes, hello, Madam Chair. Thank you for taking my comments, questions. I just wanted to point out that Mr. Brewer mentioned that there has been no complaint from the abutters, that we haven't said anything before. I wanted to say that we have been following and attending the hearings since the beginning of lots 31 and 32. We have written several letters to the planning board about our concerns. So that's how we have been voicing our opinions and sharing our concerns. So we have been complaining. I don't like to use that word, but we have been a part of this process. The other thing I wanted to say was to Mr. Potter respectfully, that you said you went to the lot today and you stood and you looked, but I'm wondering, did you go to the top of the lot? Did you come up to 646, which is the other side of lot 32, which is where we live? Did you stand up there and look down from our perspective on the view? And it's different. It's different. Also, you have to consider that we understand your point of view. You're going to make a house and you're thinking about landscaping, but we're seeing it as our environment being taken apart. I've lived here for 17 years. This is, even though I don't own that property on lot 32, it is part of my neighborhood. And I'm not the only person that feels like this. So we feel that, to take down a tree and say, we'll plant another tree and, over 10 years it will grow, is not the same thing. It's, you might see it as, a trade 1 for 1, but we don't see it that way. And there's a difference in perspective here. And I was, trying to perhaps if you came up here and you looked, I'd be happy to take you around and point out some things that you might see a different perspective. And we would appreciate that very much. And there are 11 people that live in this place, and our letters that we have sent to the planning board have over 20 signatures on it. And we have sent several. So we have been attentive to this and would like to be part of the process. And one more thing, we have not been, from the developer side, nobody has come to us and asked us our opinions or to work with us, just for the record. Thank you for your time, all of you. Thank you.
Yeah, they appreciate your comments. I didn't say anything about abutter comments. I think my comments were limited to trees and light fixtures.
I'm
You
sorry.
may have gotten confused with someone else, but the planning board generally across the board appreciates comments from the public, because you're there on the ground. You notice things over time that are important for our review.
Yes.
Not that we can always do, exactly what the abutters say, but it is important that you're participating in this process, and thank you.
Paul Grady, and then we have Virginia Brophy.
No reach out. What?
Paul Grady.
Yeah. So Ms. Berrigan, there's been no reach out. You haven't worked with the builders at all? Have you been allowed your opinions?
Correct. That is correct.
It's directed to you, Kathy.
Yes, no, we have not. Nobody has reached out to us, no.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Ann Brophy. 16 Beechwood Street. Would like to speak.
Hello, I don't know if you can hear me because I just got disconnected briefly.
We
Can you
hear
hear me?
Thank you.
Okay, sorry. I just wanted to recognize what a struggle this is, and that, the applicant is entitled to develop the property, but as we stated previously, the hope would be that it would be in conformance with the neighborhood, the environmental situations going on there. But I wanted to say that I am kind of shocked at the comment of, I think it was Mr. Potter, very kind of blasé about, well, those houses are 40 years old and they're going to be replaced ultimately anyway. That is shocking to me. The here and the now. We're not dealing with potential people that might come in 20 or 10 years from now and replace what people are calling their homes. I think that was very dismissive and belittling for him to say that. And I'm sorry to say that. I know he's a volunteer and I appreciate the hours you put in, but the other thing that I want to say is that bigger is not necessarily better. So even when or if those homes, they're not houses, they're homes, because the people that live there, those are their homes. You're talking about building a house, but we have existing homes, and there is a difference. Those people, when those houses are replaced with new owners, they might not necessarily replace it with bigger, because bigger is not better, always. And sometimes people like the older charm. So anyway, that's it. I thank you again for your time. And that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Eric Potter?
Ms. Brophy, I do apologize because I can see how that came across, and that's not my intent when making that statement. And if it came across that way, I do apologize. I was just trying to give it some perspective of the scale of these potential homes that are being built here. And I think really what I want to clarify is, and I didn't do it the right way, in my opinion, it's better to put two houses that are 4,500 or whatever the square footage of these two houses is, than put one house there that's 5,700 square feet. Because of the fact, driving through Windy Hill, you are entirely correct. These are your homes. This is your neighborhood, and you're trying to preserve the environment and preserve the neighborhood. And I would want to do the same as well. I said that from the perspective of trying to be open-minded and forward-thinking with regards to this application in front of us, with respect to what's proposed as to what could have been done if they had just built one extremely large house or come to us looking to do so. And you're entirely correct, right? The new owners on the road may or may not do additions that could enlarge the existing homes at Windy Hill. And Windy Hill is a beautiful neighborhood. It's been fantastic. There were kids outside. It was great. Be realistic in the sense that the proposed homes that are to be built here, really, while larger, are likely to be the realistic size of homes in the surrounding neighborhood as time goes by over in that neck of the woods. And you're right, it may never happen, but if the reality is